you have to be a person like that to avail an internship like that. Like if you're expecting you to be hired by something so special, then you have to have that packaged, talent in you to go for something like Netherlands, London, Berlin.
Yeah, and also that's how the industry is changing also, right? Like, because you can't just be a producer. You have to know how to engineer yourself, but you can't just be an engineer. You need to be a musician, and that's very important. No, I am the main person behind, at least for this EP. Yes, the current EP that just released, Caught in a Parade. I did everything. Before that, another band member, Malay, used to do all of that. Okay, so with the music, with all the plugins in.
बोलती वो बातें कर लो मुझसे वरना मैं सो नहीं पाऊंगी कल से मैं भाव नहीं खाऊंगी जॉर्डन्स निकाल के दबाऊंगी.
Right, so now I am going to take off all the plugins. Let's see what it sounds like.
बोलती वो बातें कर लो मुझसे वरना मैं सो नहीं पाऊंगी कल से मैं भाव नहीं खाऊंगी जॉर्डन्स निकाल के दबाऊंगी.
Now you can see that naturally it's added a lot of volume.
Yeah,
flips
so
actually.
you keep your returns at the very end. Basically, the returns channels are at the very end. जो auxiliary tracks होते हैं अपने.
Okay. This is how my session looks like. So I have a folder called FX and I have all
the different reverbs and yeah, got it. All my God.
Correct. Yeah. So this is something that I've kind of created over the last, I think, 6-7 years.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Baat To Karke Dekh Bro. And today we have Nitin with us, who's a really good friend of mine and is a really experienced engineer, has been actively involved with artists like Wanderlings, and he makes music under his own name, Palindroma. So welcome, bro. I really wanted to have you here on my podcast so that you could talk about many things that I'm curious about, like mixing stuff and what you have been up to. So, kya chal raha hai? How's Chennai?
Hey Satyam, thank you so much for having me here. I love your work, good stuff on the reels and all of that. Chennai is great. It's actually raining now. But I've been working on some music, been producing a couple of artists, some independent artists, and also mixing a little bit of hip hop and all of that. So yeah, a lot of different things happening.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think you've been sharing. तू मेरे को share करते रहता है. You share a lot of stuff that you make yourself and which you are making for other people. So it's really exciting. I think the way we used to mix 5-6 साल पहले, it is quite evolved, right? Like the kind of plugins we use, the kind of
for sure. Yeah. The workflow is. Yeah, I think the basic philosophy has stayed the same, but I think definitely the tools also have improved over the last 7 years. I feel the kind of plugins that have come out, and also because of that the workflow also changes. So yeah,
but you used to still use waves, and used to still process parallelly much, or has it evolved as well in the last 4-5 years? Because tu parallel mixing काफी करता है.
Yeah, in fact now I do more parallel processing than ever because I think loudness is what most of them go for now. So I think parallel processing really helps get loudness.
Plus, we used to talk about this, that actually at a point I think we talked about this, that parallel processing is pretty tough. If you don't have an idea of what's happening, then you could fuck up the transients and whatnot. Because we learned this from Mix with the Masters. We do this and do that, and when we started applying it, it actually sounded like shit because we couldn't know what we were doing. So it takes time. That's why 5-6 साल के बाद we are applying all these tools.
And even now also I feel sometimes, I'm just what else can I do? I put some parallel processing and I'm just no, this doesn't sound good. Let's go back to what
exactly let's go back to what we know. हमें क्या आता है, right? What exactly we know. So I mean, tell me in really brief what you have been up to since Berklee. 2017 we graduated, and हम लोग साथ में पढ़े. We studied music production technology innovation. So all the subjects from recording the entire band to dealing with mixes and analog synth and whatnot. So there's so much that they taught us, and I think a lot of guys were confused with what they want to do. But what did you pursue? And because you went for this amazing internship at Vicelord Studios as well. Am I saying their name right? Or Vicelord?
It's Vicelord.
Vicelord Studios. So how was the experience? Because like it was an amazing opportunity that you got. And like how was the experience? Because like this studio was pretty huge and like had like a lot of gear and like a bigger budget when it comes to the same field like production. Yeah. So could you share some of that, some of your experience?
Yeah, so after Berklee, I got that internship. It was a studio internship. It was like a 3.5 to 4 month internship. The experience was great. I fortunately like had, a boss who was like super active and like, like super interested in what I was doing and trying to get me projects that I wanted to work on. And also the plus point was, as interns, you have full access to the studios when there's no sessions. And so like, yeah, any mic you want, any piano you want, any guitar you want, any preamp you want, you're open to use it. But it was a very nice experience, like a very big learning experience, because there was like so much hands-on work. And as an intern, you're responsible for setting up and tearing down and, like learning equipment and all of that. So the environment was very nice. Even the clients who came there were like really, really cool. And, they understood where I was from and what I could do. And they tried to involve me in the projects and all that. It was like 3 months of packed. It was a lot of work. And also the plus point was they gave me a small bed in the corner where I could sleep. So I was just living at the studio, and they gave me food as well. So I didn't need anything. So it was perfect.
That's what was my next question. Like, how did you manage all of that? And how was the city? Where is the studio? Where was the studio? And how was the city and the experience? Because that's something really special that you remember. Like, you keep telling me about that sometimes.
Yeah. No, I think every single memory in Europe, like from Berklee and from after that, has been like really special. So Wisseloord is in this small town called Hilversum, which is like 20 minutes from Amsterdam. But it's actually in this office, like a commercial space. They've taken like 2 floors on rent, and they're basically running the studio over there. So you have different offices and other businesses running parallelly in the same building. But yeah, so it's 5 studios, 3 recording studios and 2 mastering suites. And yeah, so, and it's also in the middle of like, most of that country is like very quiet and foresty and like a lot of greenery. So for me, it felt like it was in the middle of nowhere, and it was just beautiful, there's just forest all around. And yeah, and most of the times, like nights, I used to sleep there. I think I was the only one in that whole 5-kilometer radius inside this big facility. So yeah, it was a beautiful time.
Well, just to add, like it was like availing an internship like this is not that easy. Like, because you're supposed to have a good portfolio. That's what we actually were trying to talk about last time we were trying to record the podcast. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but it's really important for me to add that like Nitin already had a lot of projects that he had worked in, a lot of experience, quite some experience of, I think, 2-3 years already of mixing, right? Before he even arrived to Berklee. And because of that, and plus learning side by side, he applied for Wisseloord Studios, and like he got it, because like the fact that he could compose music and record things was like a really major factor for you that they were looking for. Because now the future is that like where people would know, people are like multi-talented when it comes to engineering or production, right? So could you add to that, like like from your end, what was that factor like apart from the engineering?
So I think like we all know like the recording business itself is, it's kind of a dying business, right? Like it's not a very sustainable, profitable business. Yeah, after a few years, probably it will. If you have the business long enough and if you have like a long-standing client list. So what Wisseloord, and that's the case everywhere, all over the world. And what Wisseloord was trying to do was to actually set up writing camps. So they would get producers, composers, songwriters, and artists together and produce something. Yeah, so they were looking for people, and they were going in that direction because that was more, that they saw in the long run to be more profitable than to just run a recording studio and like get people to pay by the hour. So I think in that way they were looking for people who had some background in production and composing and engineering, because they put you in this writing camp and say you sit with a songwriter, and the songwriter basically like is going to compose properly, write a little bit of lyrics, but then they need like a producer who's able to like record and like immediately do a quick mix down, and immediately like put things together and give like a rough master then and there, which they can use to produce, like pitch for labels and all of that. So I think that way, since like you said, I've been doing this for some time, even before coming to Berklee, it kind of helped, I think, to kind of mold into what they were looking at.
Makes sense. I mean, and that's one thing that like people can take from here, that like you have to be a person like that to avail an internship like that. Like if you're expecting you to be hired by something so special, then you have to have that packaged, talent in you to go for something like Netherlands, London, Berlin.
Yeah, and also like that's how the industry is changing also, right? Like, cause you can't just be a producer. You have to know how to like engineer yourself, but you can't just be an engineer. You need to be a musician, and that's very important, I feel.
So tell me currently what's going on in your life. Like, I think you've been involved with. Let's jump back to our current situation, because like it has been like 6 years, and like let's not dive into every other timeline, but just talk about what exactly is happening right now. But you've been involved with Easy Wanderlings. It's really important to add that, because you've been touring with them, and at the same time you worked for Grace Park, and you were a chief engineer there in Pune for some time, and then you were in Chennai. So could you give a recap of what all things you were involved in, and what's currently happening?
Yeah, so I think after the internship, I came back to India and I joined Grace Park Audio, which is in Pune, which is, again, it's a recording studio, and like a lot of indie work was happening. So Easy Wanderling started when I was in college, even before Berklee. And after I came back, I think we worked on some music together, and I play keys with the band, but I also like go into I'm also with all the production, and I recorded and mixed the latest EP, Caught in a Parade. So yeah, I mean, like the band is there's some good musicians in the band, but they need someone to put everything together. So I kind of like step in and be like, hey, let's let's go to the studio and get this done.
Yeah, you're part of the team in the sense of like, because like when you're part of the team, like someone is doing mastering or someone is doing the mix part, sometimes you switch on the mixing role, sometimes you switch on the keys. Like I think that's what happens in Easy Wanderlings, or you are now the main person behind the mixes.
No, I am the main person behind, at least for this EP, yes. The current EP that just released, Caught in a Parade, I did everything. Before that, another band member, Malay, used to do all of that. I don't master the music. I think because I'm so involved from the pre-production process that by the time I reach the end of the mix stage, and the Easy Wanderlings are 8 people. So then there's 8 different mix notes coming to you. The last thing you want to do is sit and master the music, right? So that happens. I'm there till the mix stage, and then we give it out for master. In the live setting, when we're performing and when we're touring, I don't take care of the sound at all. In fact, I completely switch off from my audio engineer side and become like a performer when it comes there, because we tour with our engineer, and we just give him full responsibility, and we just trust him. It's just like, you do what you do best, we'll do what we do best. And I think that really works for everyone in that scenario.
Well, that's really cool. So yeah, I just wanted to ask you this thing that like, how do you approach, now that you're in Chennai, like you were earlier in Pune, and right now you have your setup like here, and of course you have that studio, but when it comes to mixing or producing at the moment, like what do you think like are the challenges when it comes to mixing on headphones compared to like having monitors in general for any artist, like even a professional one like you or me, like who has to deliver with wherever we are? How do you approach things? Because we've talked about a lot of that in our channel. You've seen that. Could you share something? Yeah.
So mixing on headphones, I think for me has become really convenient over the last few years, because I tend to travel quite a bit, for shows and like other teaching gigs and all of that. But I think for someone who's starting off, it's very important to mix and learn to listen to sound in a very good room with very good speakers. And I think we got that training and we had the time to actually explore sound like that.
Yeah.
Right? Because in college we had studios, and then of course I worked in Grace Park, which is a beautiful room to work in.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's very important to kind of like train your ears. And then after that, you can pick up a pair of headphones that you like and that you feel fits for you. Because for me, I always think of headphones. A lot of people come and ask me, like, what headphones should I get? This is my budget. For me, I think like I use Harry Potter as a comparison. I'm just like, it's like a wand, like not every headphone is for everyone.
Yeah.
So you have to see which headphone is comfortable for you, that you like, that is good for your ears and the kind of music you do, and you should get it. Right. So because it's a very personalized thing. So mixing on headphones is, it's not too bad, but I just feel like, again, you have low end judgment issues and vocal level issues. So I feel like I tend to make vocals a tad bit louder when I'm mixing on headphones when compared to monitors.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't have a good room, if you don't have a well-balanced room with decent set of monitors, then I think you'll be doing more harm mixing on them than mixing on headphones.
Yeah.
So I think the important takeaway has been, like, at least for the last few years for me, is that ear training is really important. Train your ears to listen to music and listen to like different instruments in a good listening environment. And then, so that signature, that profile, the audio profile is there embedded in your head. So when you listen to anything on any headphones, you can immediately tell, okay, this is not how it should sound.
Yeah.
And then you go about making those changes. Now, I've had these headphones I think I got these in Berklee. I mean, these are the
Shure ones,
pair.
right?
I had a pair before this. This is the Shure SRH 840. And so I'm just used to it. It's been 7 years. And I love them. I do everything on it. I, in fact, perform live with it. I don't use in-ears. So yeah.
You're so used to them, like, because you know how it sounds and like how music sounds on them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell. I mean, I can tell that stuff sounds a little brighter, a little top-endy on this. The low end is very well balanced. I mean, there's not much sub, but it's just there. It doesn't sound boomy. So it's not very misleading as well. So that way I can understand how these headphones are. And I've used yours as well. I've used the ATH. What is yours? The 50.
This is M50X, which
M50X. Sorry,
and I
M50X,
got them fixed again. Some client broke it and I got them fixed again. But I have these 880s as well. But ye wale 880s like are open ears.
I think one of my most favorite headphones is the 880s.
Yeah, they're really
just sound
pleasant.
Beautiful. Yeah. Very well balanced.
Really well with mids,
really nice.
And it gives you a different listening experience because they're open, but you can't judge the low end in them like totally. That's also one thing I feel.
Yeah.
For low end, you need the closed backs.
No, I think for low end, the only way to judge low end is to play your music outside.
Definitely.
Play it with a really good, well-mastered, mixed-mastered song and just compare the low end and then tweak it. Because you're never going to have a perfect room that's going to have like a very balanced low end unless you you build the perfect studio for yourself. But I think using comparisons, using songs, other songs to kind of like A/B it with is the only way you get your low end and your loudness right.
Well, that's the thing. So it gets challenging to make a room, etc. But as you're saying, like, that's what I suggest as well. Like, if you have headphones, then if you have 5.1 speakers or 2.1 speakers inside your house, or listen to stuff in your car, and that's the way around, like the general stuff. Like, and headphones in terms of low end it's a really big issue because we can't judge what's happening, and it is really weird. But
it is. I mean, how much low end can you push on like such small drivers? I mean, it is what it is.
Well, talking in that context, like, I want you to finally explain us a couple of things related to how do you approach mixing, because we talk a lot about mixing as well, like how, like, and everyone has their own way, sabka apna tarika hai, like, mix karne ka, and we wanted to know your approach. I think I know that you use 3 different DAWs. You use Ableton Live, Logic, and Pro Tools, all 3 of them. One,
Yeah.
quickly you can tell us like why the hell do you use three DAWs? And like I'm sure there's a reason behind it, so I want to know that. And yeah, first you could tell us that, and then you could show some mixing stuff.
Yeah, so I think Logic is the least used for me, even though I started with Logic. So I think I used Logic for over 4 years before I started using Pro Tools and Ableton. So I mean, I'm familiar with it, but I'm not too quick at it. The only reason why I still stay in touch with Logic is because I think it's one of the most widely used DAWs today. And I mean, it depends. And if you want to work with a lot of people, you need to have the knowledge of the tools that they use as well.
Correct.
Especially in recording studios in Chennai, a lot of people use Logic and not Pro Tools.
Right.
So I think that's.
But why?
That's the only place. They're just comfortable with it, I guess.
But you were telling me that like they do everything in one project.
Yeah. So one thing is, I mean, that you can say with any DAW. But Logic is, I feel, at least in the Indian film industry, it's used very widely, right? Because it's nice for composing, it's nice for scoring and all of that. So what I've noticed is in the film industry, they don't have too much time, and they have really tight deadlines for film scores and all of that.
Right.
So I've seen composers and producers get their big background score session, which will have around 200, 300 tracks with VSTs and
everything in one DAW.
Everything in one, right? Contact and Spitfire and everything into one DAW. Come to the studio to record live instruments, dub live instruments over the score. Now, this recording it in their session, in their Logic session, really saves a lot of time.
Right.
Because of the deadlines. Because we just record it in that session, they take the session back home, they edit, they mix, finished. If you're going to do different DAWs, then we'll have to sit cleaning up, editing, and exporting everything, which takes a lot of time.
Makes sense.
Especially for the scale of projects that come in, right? Because if it's a 3-hour film and it has over 500, 600 tracks, then it's just too much work. So,
makes sense. So it's like the Toyota system mentality. Like you have to have the right, team structured, everything in one thing. Like mixing is done in the same project, production, whatever things get added. Maybe like they start freezing things and start like consolidating stuff. I don't know.
Not really. I think with the new M1s, I don't think it's required at all, because I've seen like big background score sessions with over 500 tracks and all kinds of plugins, like Sound Toys and Omnisphere and all of these heavy plugins. It just runs on the M1 Max. So it's I think from their perspective, it's really convenient for them, and I understand why. But I think for me, it is one of my least favorite workflows to use Logic.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's my least favorite DAW. It has its plus points when compared to Pro Tools and Ableton, but it's just not for me. And Ableton is what I think it's our daily driver, which is I just do all my work on Ableton. But Pro Tools is equally my daily driver as well. I do all of my mixing in Pro Tools. It's nice to keep switching things up a bit.
If you have to say like, okay, because I can use this part as a proper reel, why do you use 3 DAWs? Pro Tools, Logic, and Ableton Live, if you have to answer in really short.
Wow, okay. So Pro Tools, once more.
Why do you do it?
Pro Tools, because it has very good hardware integration, and the I/O is really nice.
For mixing.
Ableton, because I think it's the best music production tool out there to get creative. Logic, because I'm just forced to use it. I don't really enjoy using it.
Okay, cool. Chal, let's take it to which DAW do you have today in front of us, like to show some sort of mixing, because we wanted to know what's your approach. As you said, like I think you were, I was excited about the fact that you were going to show me some hip hop stuff. तो कुछ hip hop बना के मतलब there's a hip hop mixing project that you have, and please could you tell us like who's the artist, and you could start showing us your screen if you want, and please go ahead and show us what you got.
You got. The DAW for today is going to be Pro Tools.
Yay.
Which is I know a lot of artists I work with, they come and say, this is industrial mixing. It looks so like industrial. But I think, honestly, it has one of the best workflows of any DAW. Anyway, so this is a track called Honest by my very good friend Shuman.
Right.
Shuman, and there is a featuring artist called Young Fly who does one verse. Yeah, so this is how my session looks like. Okay. So what do you want me to show?
What's your approach when it comes to, let's say, you got the stems like from the artist and from the producer? Like, do you start gain staging first? I mean, most probably, maybe not. What's your approach? Like, do you maintain a certain headroom?
Okay.
Most of that, and slightly a bit about like your drum processing and your vocal processing, because that mostly covers everything about, like, in general about the mixing. Whatever.
Okay, so when I start off, I always start off with the rhythm, right? The beats. I start off with my low end. I have my kick here. I have my 808 here, and once that is in, then I put in my vocals. Now, when I approach any track, the first thing I do is I do a lot of cleanup. Right, take out resonant frequencies that are not required for the genre and style, and depending on the arrangement of the track, I kind of find out what are the clashing frequencies and I take it out.
Right.
I never boost in the first go, so you can see that this is my main vocal EQ. That's not much happening. It's basically carving out a little bit of the mids. Let's listen to the track a little so that we get an understanding of what the song sounds like and what Shuman actually sounds like.
बोलती वो बातें कर लो मुझसे वरना मैं सो नहीं पाऊंगी कल से मैं भाव नहीं खाऊंगी जॉर्डन्स निकाल के दबाऊंगी मेरी राजा जैसी हरकतें पर तू नहीं रानी ये फेरी टेल नहीं कहानी थोड़ी ऑनेस्ट है जुबान भी.
Okay, so as you can tell, he has a very mid-range, very prominent mid-range in his vocals. He has a very nasal character. And that's what like sets him apart, you know. He has a very unique tone and a very unique accent.
Right.
So all of that kind of lies in this range. Now the thing is, our goal is to not scoop off too much, then we'll lose his vocal character. So this is around 2 to 3 dB of cuts just to clear things up. Then I add a little bit of saturation with Decapitator, right? And then we have the virtual mix rack. I think this is one of my most favorite things. I think Slate makes amazing plugins.
Yeah. And the EQ
So, yeah. And the thing is, this is hip hop. And one of the main things with hip hop is that it needs to sound loud. And the stylistic character of that music is, even if it distorts outside, it's okay. Because that's how that music sounds, right? And one of the things to make stuff sound loud is to increase perceived loudness, and perceived loudness comes from taming your transients, making sure that your transients hit well so that it sounds loud, right? And a lot of these transients also are in the top end. So if you see, like, a lot of the EQ moves and a lot of the processing I'm doing is to tame these transients and kind of like make these transients to pop out.
Could you quickly, just because a lot of people might be confused at this point, what all is happening? Because I see Shuman, which track currently we are on? We are exactly in the series mode right now. So these are the vocals.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we are basically on this track. This is the main vocal track.
Main vocal, and we are processing it directly.
Yeah.
And so where is this track going to? This is going to your submix, right?
This is going into my submix.
Yeah,
yes.
and the submix is going to the master, which is like just above it.
Correct. Yeah. So it's going to the physical output. It's coming through my monitors.
So basically, in short, what Nitin is doing here is like he's sending all his tracks to submix, and there's a particular kind of change जो character add कर रही है. It's like doing his job, maybe adding like stereo width and whatnot, and then it's going to the master, and maybe on the master he has some sort of limiter, जो कि typically हम लोग काफी videos में बता चुके हैं कि like every time we are mixing something, we have gain staged the stuff and increased significant level so that we can listen to the music at the loudest level. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yes, you're right. Yeah. And also for all of Schumann's stuff, I kind of master it myself. So this is more of a mix master, if you want to call it.
You kind of mix and master it together in this way. Like
we just do it together because I think it just solves a lot of
and you do it at the same time or like leave it for later. Man, damn.
No. For his music, because the thing is, we've been working together for I think 5 years now. So we've kind of found a workflow relationship
as well.
Right. So he knows exactly what I'll give him. I know exactly what he wants. So it's all kind of set.
That's cool because I recently saw that like in electronic music we can tend to do that and recently I've started mastering while mixing because of that because we have more control over the electronic stuff.
Especially when you're dealing with music like this. I feel I would not do this for say like an easy Wanderlings track.
Makes sense.
Where there's
more
so
acoustic
many
elements,
so much live instruments.
Yeah.
I would rather just focus on getting the tone right and getting the balance and the mix
and leave
right
it for the mastering engineer probably.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is one of those very rare cases where I'm just like mix mastering it.
Awesome.
There are times where I just do the mix, get the mix approved, then put it into a new session and master it separately. But with Schumann, I rarely do that. I just do it in one session.
Right.
So this is basically my vocal chain. You have the EQ, you have a little bit of saturation, then you have another EQ. Now, what's special about this EQ is that this is a API style EQ, and it adds a very specific tone to his voice. So I've boosted a little bit of top end. Then this is my main vocal compressor, and you just need a 1176.
Yeah, 1176. This one is by
anything.
Arturia. It's a new set of plugins.
This one is by Arturia. Yes. Yeah. I would love to have the UAD one, but it's just too damn expensive. So I'm just going to go with this. Right. After that, I have a de-esser.
Okay.
A de-esser now is a kind of a multi-band compressor where it compresses only one specific band of frequency, and a compressor compresses the whole signal. Right. So that's the difference between like a multi-band compressor or a de-esser and a normal compressor. So over here, what we are doing is this is used to compress and control his S's. Right, so that it doesn't sound too bright and it doesn't peak out of the mix. So we can select the frequency here. So this is at 6K, right? So depending on the key of the song, depending on the vocal tone, and depending on the octave he's singing, that frequency is going to change. So if he's going to sing in a higher octave, higher key, then that's going to go up. If he's going to sing in a lower key, lower octave, that's going to come down.
So do you always approach de-esser to be at this point, or sometimes you keep it at the start? Like when you feel like sometimes the voice is recorded too shrill. Maybe not in case of Schumann, but like someone else. Because
for sure. Yeah,
right?
If
sometimes
it's like a female vocal, that's like really, because female vocals tend to get too hissy.
Yeah.
Right. And also it depends on the mic and the pre you're using as well. But if it's a female vocal, my de-esser would be right after the main EQ.
I think Schumann has a really good mic in general, but like when it comes to someone who's recording at home or recording through Scarlett 2i2 plus Rode NT1, something like that, it brings that harshness, and you have to kind of tame maybe once or twice with the de-esser.
Yeah, definitely two de-essers because the mic brings out a lot of that harshness. Is not very smooth, and the Scarlett preamp also is not very good at capturing high frequencies, so it sounds a little fake.
Correct.
Right. Now Schumann records he records at home, but he records with an AKG C414 large diaphragm condenser mic, and he has an Apogee Duet, which I think by far for me at that price range has one of the best preamps and a very good A to D conversion in it.
Okay.
So that way it's pretty sorted, but of course we can always experiment with different microphones for different songs, and and I feel like C414 is really good. You're using a C414 right now.
Exactly.
I think it's one of the best mics ever made. But I feel like when it comes to vocals, there's every singer always has a very specific tone which would go with a very specific mic. And I feel like eventually we want to explore that with Schumann as well, because I think he sounds really good on a dynamic mic than a condenser mic.
Really? Okay.
But we have to find the right dynamic mic and the right preamp for him. But
Cool. Coming back to the chain, like I think there's one last plugin that you have left there.
Yeah. So after the DSR, I have a multi-band.
Yeah.
And now what I'm doing here is I am basically compressing a very specific frequency. So this is basically at 3K, right, at 3000 hertz. Now what I'm doing is, because of all the processing that's happened before this, it's brought out a lot of his nasal tone, right, which is at around 3K, right? Now if I actually play this for you, let me just solo that frequency and play it for you. Right? So what happens is all the processing kind of like enhances the mid-range and the high mid-range.
Right.
And his nasal vocal tone also comes up because of that. And that's natural. It's going to happen because of the processing. It's going to happen. So what I am doing is I'm just like, I don't want to cut it out completely using an EQ.
Yeah.
Then we lose his fundamental.
Yeah.
But I'm just like controlling the dynamics of it, so that it's just like, okay, I want to hear it. Yeah. But just stay in your place. Don't come and annoy my.
Do you also use it to? Yeah, it's basically cutting out the harsh things, but you probably also using it at the low mids, so that you could tame the throat frequencies as well. Like, what's the other?
We could, but
what's the other one that you're using right now? The colored in turquoise.
Which one?
The other filter that you have in here, like in the C6, apart from the right nasal. Yeah, this one.
Oh no, I'm not.
Okay, you're not using this one.
It's only this. Yeah, I'm just using this. But you're right. The low mid, I do use it sometimes.
Okay.
But not. I've not probably not used it for his music for a while now.
Okay.
He used to record on a dynamic mic, which used to not pick up a lot of the top end. So that time I used to use it, but I've not used it in this song.
Okay.
But yeah, you can definitely use the multiband to clean up the low end as well. Low mid, yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, I think there's a way to turn off these plugins and turn them on in Pro Tools, right? Could you do that AV thing?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this is what his
plugins,
vocals sound like now.
Yeah.
बातें कर लो मुझसे वरना मैं सो नहीं पाऊंगी कल से मैं भाव नहीं खाऊंगी जॉर्डन्स ने.
Right. Now I'm just gonna take out all the plugins. Please note that I am also going to take off my.
I think you could leave them. Let's have the reference of
that.
Yeah. Let's have the reference of the same output, whatever you set it to. Otherwise, it gets confusing for a person, right?
Okay, cool. Wait, I'll just do it from scratch again. 1 second, I'll just do it again.
So, play it with the context of music as well.
Okay, so nice, I'm just gonna play this. Do you want me to play it with the music or just solo?
With the music would be great.
Okay, so with the music, with all the plugins in.
बोलती वो बातें कर लो मुझसे वरना मैं सो नहीं पाऊंगी कल से मैं भाव नहीं खाऊंगी जॉर्डन्स निकाल के दबाऊंगी.
Right. So now I am going to take off all the plugins. Let's see what it sounds like.
बोलती वो बातें कर लो मुझसे वरना मैं सो नहीं पाऊंगी कल से मैं भाव नहीं खाऊंगी जॉर्डन्स निकाल के दबाऊंगी.
Now you can see that naturally it's added a lot of volume.
Yeah.
So I'm probably just going to like solo it and play it so that you can kind of see the AP. So now this is without any processing.
बोलती वो बातें कर लो मुझसे वरना मैं सो नहीं पाऊंगी कल से मैं.
Now with the processing.
बोलती वो बातें कर लो मुझसे वरना मैं सो नहीं पाऊंगी कल से मैं भाव नहीं खाऊंगी.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So when you're mixing, like I think one of the main things is to whatever source you get, you have to make it the best version of itself as possible. So
yeah, right. I mean,
yeah. So yeah. Even though it's a home recording, whatever. I'm not going to sit complaining, hey, you didn't use a 2 lakh rupee ka mic and you didn't use this preamp and all that. I'm just like, okay, this is what he can do. This is what he sent me. Now let me see what best I can make out of it. So
makes sense. Oh, someone is trying to call me. 1 second. Yeah. So that's great. I mean, like I can see like it's these waveforms that you have. It's because of the Pro Tools that they seem so louder, but they're not actually louder. It's just the size of the.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I can just change that. Yeah.
But because we might get confused that how the hell has he gain staged? But like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, these are just like normal levels. So equally important for us in every other part of the track that the gain stage that you're sending. So are you also considering the input gain when it comes to your chain?
Input gain from
the clip gain itself.
No, I very rarely do it. But usually when it's in the recording, when it's gain staged well, I don't have to touch it.
So you're letting the compressors do the job basically in the context of the leveling up and down. Okay.
Yeah.
And
but I also like to use volume automation,
right,
to kind of like like bring it up and down. But I usually don't touch the clip gain unless it's required.
Okay.
Because if it's gain staged well during the recording, which this was,
okay,
I didn't find the need to, because then I'm playing around with his input dynamics, his performance dynamics, which I don't want to like touch, because he's very specific about what he wants loud, what
Makes
he
sense.
wants soft.
Okay.
Right. So in this case, no, I'm not really touching it.
That's cool. Could you also play like another part of this song where maybe you're playing more with the effects or something else happens?
Wait, in this song, I don't think this. Okay, so I can probably.
And we can talk about like slightly about the effects that you used, and that should be.
Okay, so I'll just stick with Schumann's voice only then. Okay, cool. So I'll just play the second half of the song. Now, the most important thing while mixing vocals is you need good reverb and appropriate reverb for the songs, right? So now you can see that these are my sends over here, and I process my reverbs parallelly and not in series. So this send is going into a reverb box, and the reverb plays from that. So I have my send levels set right here, right? So you can see that all of these are my reverbs and delays. So I like to use a combination of 2 or 3 reverbs, right? So I have a short reverb, then I have a hall reverb, then I could have a room reverb, just to give different tones, and I see how to blend them together, right? So I'm just going to take off all the reverbs and just play a take.
सब पुमा के जूते पहने नहीं नाइकी, कुगर है बंदी शादी करना चाहती लेती जैसे वाइफी, मिक्स मेरी फीलिंग्स है जैसे बारटेंडर की बनी है लाइट.
Right, now if I put on the reverbs and sends, this is how it sounds.
सब पुमा के जूते पहने नहीं नाइकी, कुगर है बंदी शादी करना चाहती लेती जैसे वाइफी, मिक्स मेरी फीलिंग्स है.
Right, so I feel like reverb always adds a lot of character.
Definitely.
But I also feel that you'll have to use it well and not overdo it, because it can make or break your mix.
So during this इस पॉडकास्ट को रिकॉर्ड करते हुए हमारा इंटरनेट और हमारा प्रो टूल्स एक बार क्रैश कर चुका है. सो a lot of effort in making this content, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, and let's continue with what Nitin was speaking about. I think you were speaking about the sends and the kind of reverbs you've used, right? So we can take it from there.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So I'm just going to play a little bit of his vocal with the reverbs and without the reverbs, so we can see how that sounds. This is the main vocal.
बोले थे मेरे कुछ वादे कर दिया नजरअंदाज, कट के घूमता हूँ मैं मुंबई रात में बोतल से करता हूँ बात.
Right, that is without any reverb.
Right.
And this is with reverb.
बोले थे मेरे कुछ वादे कर दिया नजरअंदाज, कट के घूमता हूँ मैं मुंबई रात में बोतल से करता हूँ बात.
Nice.
Right, so I always like to use a combination of reverbs, and in this song, and almost 90% of the time, I always process my reverbs and delays parallelly as opposed to in series, because I feel like it gives me more control over it. But that's not always the case. But over here, I have done it parallelly.
Right.
So I have, I think, around 4 different reverbs that are running. I think 3 reverbs and 1 delay that's running.
Okay.
So these are the different sends. So I have like room reverb, right? So I'm using Valhalla room. I'm pretty much just using Valhalla.
Okay.
Then we have a slightly long.
The preset name is Khali.
Sorry?
The preset name is Khali.
Khali. Okay, so so the thing is that that Khali actually came from Khalitan, which is the song that we released.
Okay.
I just took the preset from that. And then I have like a
vintage verb.
Yeah, vintage verb. So you can see the decay times on this. So you have like a 4 second, then there's 2 seconds, and there's 6 seconds. So I have like a short reverb.
Right.
I have a medium reverb, and then I have a long reverb. right? And I kind of use them in combination and blend the tones together. And I also have a short delay, which is quite interesting and what it does. So this is like the stock
Pro Tools
plugin, delay plugin. So what I'm doing is I'm just having like 300 milliseconds of delay, just like a very short delay. So I have like 337 on one side and 315 on the other side. So it's a stereo delay, and it's like really short. And I just add very little of it, just to give a sense of space and a sense of width to the vocals.
Interesting.
Right? So in addition to defining the space with the reverbs, I also have the short delay that kind of like gives me a slight stereo effect.
I'll try this.
For the vocal.
That's
itself.
cool.
Yeah, it's quite useful, and you'll actually find this on a lot of the old school Bollywood tracks.
Correct.
Right. On like, and in fact, I learnt it from like one of a very renowned engineer, Mr. Avinash Oak, and he showed me this. And he's worked on everything that came out in the 90s.
Okay.
You know, like Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham, and like all of that DDLJ, all of that stuff he's worked on. He's like a legend.
Is it called a slapback?
He showed me this.
Okay. Is it called a slapback delay, or like what do you call it, like, or something like that?
No, it's not really a slapback delay. A slapback delay doesn't have too much feedback.
Okay.
Right, so it doesn't have too many repetitions.
Got it. This one has.
This has it has a little bit of repetition happening. So you can see that
feedback is 43%.
Feedback is up 43%, and this is at 21%.
Got it.
Right. So which means I'm gonna have a little more number of repetitions on this side than on my right side. But that kind of gives you that sense of space that it's not even.
Can we just listen to with just this one?
Yeah. So let me just put this on.
बोले थे मेरे कुछ वादे कर दिया नजरअंदाज कट के घूमता हूँ मैं मुंबई रात में बोतल से करता हूँ.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to take this out.
बोले थे मेरे कुछ वादे कर दिया नजरअंदाज कट के घूमता.
Right.
Makes sense.
I'm also looking at it in combination with the reverbs I have. Right. Just the short delay might give you some kind of like timing issues because it's not like really on the BPM. But when it combines with all the other, reverbs, it kind of like blends together. Correct. So yeah, it's nice to like, it's nice to use it for your vocals to just sit, and also have that stereo
Interesting.
space.
So I mean, like the pre-delay factor of any reverb, you kind of controlling it in the sense with this delay in a way, because like it comes slightly later than the actual vocals, that gives the effect of like the space. That's the idea.
So that's what we are like, kind of like blending it, and you could say that it gives you that space.
Yeah, cool. So I mean, this is awesome. Thanks for sharing the vocal part of the things. Like, I think you could quickly tell us like what are these tracks just below this particular track, this audio track, like mix dry 2, mix dry 1, like VX dry 2. So these are the effects chain, or this is like some part of the other track. Got it. These are some audio tracks that are coming in between.
Yeah, so these are just other audio.
Got it.
These are all just
audio
his vocal tracks. So these are his ad-libs actually.
So you keep your returns at the very end, basically. The channels are at the very end. So auxiliary tracks hote hain apne.
So this is how my session looks like. So I have a folder called FX, and I have all the
different reverbs and got it. My God. I think this might be some sort of like template that you might have. Like always.
Correct. Yeah. So this is something that I've kind of like created over the last, I think, 6-7 years. So with each mix I do, I kind of like tweak it, and it doesn't always work for every song, but at least I have a starting point, and I don't have to waste a lot of time creating an aux and searching for a plugin, and
that's pretty cool.
So it's already there. Yeah. So it's just a starting point. Most of the time it works. Most of the time it doesn't work.
Okay. So, I think this like there's this engineer that we know, Shops, or what is the name? Is like Andrew Shops.
Andrew Shops, yeah.
He talked a lot about using templates and parallel processing, and he's a beast. Like at mixing, and like the kind of like tricks he uses, the kind of like tricks he shares on Mix with the Masters, man, they're kick-ass. And I think I've learned a lot from that. I'm sure that you might have incorporated some of the things that he said and like taught in those.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like all of them, like not only Andrew Shops. I mean, there's also Michael Brower.
Right.
one of my favorite mix engineers, and Jason Joshua. Like this is, it's just experience. I think they're just
sharing that.
I'm sure like 7 years ago, I didn't have such a big like reverb. I didn't have so much knowledge on how I could use reverb and like short delays to make my vocal set well. So so with I guess like 6 to 7 years, we have come here and they've had like 20-30 years of
right.
mixing music.
Just in case just in case you're curious about what we're talking about, like we're talking about Mix with the Masters. They have their own subscription model of tutorials, and these are the top industry professionals who are talking about how they mixed a popular record.
How they mixed
a popular record.
How they mixed one of definitely like the biggest songs of our decade
that are out there.
Yeah, like Grammy winning songs of our decade.
And that teaches you a lot, like how these people are approaching mixes which are being done at this level. So we have learned a lot from that. So if there's anyone out here who's curious about increasing the level of mixing, that's one place you could go to. So bro, let's come up back to the final thing, which is how do you process drums? Like especially for hip hop, a lot of people ask us ki bhai tu drum kaise process karte ho, and like what are the main things that are important for you? With that, I think we'll be done with today's topics.
Okay. So you can see that my drums are here. Let me just put this into a group. Right. So all the purple tracks are my drums. I think the first most important thing with hip hop, again, like I said, loudness is very important, and the drums really need to be punchy and it needs to come out there. I think first and foremost is the production itself. Like it's the kind of samples that you choose to make beats with. And the most important thing with any percussive instrument is its transients. And I think we're talking about transients again and again because I think it's one of the most important things for loudness, right? And for punchiness. So you need to choose samples that really have those kinds of transients. That being said,
give me a second.
Just
give me a second, bro.
Battery of the phone.
Don't fuck up at the very end, dude.
No, it's recording.
Cool. So let's we were talking about the drum aspect of things. So you could continue.
Yeah, correct. So So talking about drums, selecting your samples is very important because the samples need to have really good loud transients so that we can actually bring out the loudness in it. The second thing is I gain stage it. So when I get stems, they're mostly balanced according to what the producer and the composer intended to be. And but I also do like a slight gain stage so that like everything is in place, and then I have a little bit of panning happening just to create some space. Like I like to pan like the percussion and the hats and all of that to a side. I don't like hard pan it. Probably like just keep it 90%, 80% left or right. And again, as you can see, I'm not like really processing too much
individually,
but I'm processing it as a bus, right? I take all the drums, the kick, snare, percussion, hats, everything, bus it, put it into an aux, and then process that aux, right?
Yeah, that's what I
like to individually process is the main elements only, which is the kick and the clap or the snare, right? Because they are the most important elements in a groove. I'm just gonna like play this real quick. Right. So on the kick, I'm basically just like again cleaning up a little bit of the sub low end so that we can make space for the 808s, and probably saturating it a little bit and adding a little bit of top end again to bring out the transients. And this is the main clap, taking out everything below 200, right? So that we can make more space in the low end. Saturation, and same chain as the kick.
Got it.
More saturation, increasing the transients on the top end, right? Now, if we go to the main drum bus, I have a bunch of things happening. I have like a very light EQ, right? So again, taking off a little bit of the low end, a little bit of like half a dB boost on the mids and the high mids.
Correct. Revival again.
Saturation, right? Revival, we have a saturation. This saturates the top end and a little bit of the low end. An EQ, right?
Slight bumps.
And you can see that what I like to do is I like to, even though I'm using so many plugins, I'm not like over processing stuff. I'm doing everything in like small increments. It's like half a dB here, 1 dB there, and nothing more, right? But I'm doing it in steps because each plugin adds its own character. And I feel like it's easier to tame the tone and control the tone when you use different steps in different plugins than to just do it in one plugin.
Makes sense. Yeah. Right? And it adds a different character.
And this is like my main bus compressor for the beats only, for the drums. This is the API 2500 waves. And then a little bit of consoles preamp saturation. This is the Soundtoys little radiator. I love this plugin. I think it sounds great. It's really nice. It adds a lot of tone.
So using this preamp to add the character, like to give it a tone for these drums, basically.
Correct. Okay. Correct. And to basically give it a little more drive, you know, like because the drums need to sound nice and upfront. It's a pop.
Let's do an AB. Let's do an AB with the.
Let's do an AB. Yeah. So this is without any processing.
Okay. On the drums. On the music. Sorry.
On the drums.
I'm saying like on the music, like we could have the reference. It would be great. Like with the music, I mean.
Oh, with the music, but then you lose a lot of level.
That's true.
That's the problem. Right. Okay, so this is without the processing. Right, with the processing.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole idea is to like
bring the
make
character
things upfront and like, you know, like bring that grunginess and that saturated tone right on your face. Because when you actually play it with the 808, this is how it sounds. Right? If I play it without any processing on the drums, with the 808, it sounds a little weak.
Right.
So you want to match up to that energy.
So I'm glad that you're following the similar concept, because in my experience of mixing, I've come to this conclusion that when I started processing things individually, the things started seeming like out of control. Like, and it's really hard to control the individual aspect of things. So, and it has been like years now that I process things the way that you are, like in a group, like bus processing in a way, you know. Do you also are you also adding further parallel stuff here, or this is it? Like I can see some.
No, I am.
You are.
yeah. There's definitely some parallel happening.
Okay.
Wait. Where are the parallel buses? Oh, it's here. Okay.
So these are compressors, basically parallel compression. Okay.
So there is this. So as you can see, I'm adding some parallel processing. These are my sends, and the sends are going into these two tracks over here.
I can see decapitator, and like another one is like some like
right. So what I like to do with beats is that I have a compressor. So this is a distressor, right? This is like an FG stress. So I am basically I have the ratio all the way up to like 10:1, and I'm really compressing it.
Okay.
Right, so let me just play it for you. Right, so we're like compressing almost 23 dB over there, but it's in parallel.
Yeah, parallel. So it's just slightly
and
side bits.
Yeah, and the other parallel bus I always have on especially heavy hip hop beats is a distorted compressed bus. Right, so I have the decapitator that's like really saturating my drums, and it's literally distorting it.
Okay.
And then I have a compressor right at the end.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So I have two. So I have like a clean, super compressed signal, but I also have a super distorted, dirty compressed signal that is playing parallelly. Right?
Yeah.
And the best part about parallel processing is that you have level control, so you can just like mix it in. So you can see that this is just right there at 20 dB.
That's what you can do with somehow like control better with Pro Tools. All these.
No, I'm sure you can do that with Ableton.
You can, but like
it's even better because you have like the same chain. Like you can just create chains, right? Parallel chains.
But you are sending this to a submix in itself, right? So you would probably have to make another return track in itself to send the submix there, isn't it?
In Ableton?
Yeah. Let's say you have right now you have an aux, which is a return track, and you probably might do the submix using another return track. So you're sending from one return track to another one.
I mean,
something like that
yeah,
you'll have to do. But in Pro Tools, you can have that chain itself.
No, you can just put it in a group. You can just put it in a group, right?
Yeah. No, but I'm
just put it in a group.
But you're trying to send us. Anyway, this is too complicated for a lot of people. But yeah we can talk about this all the time. But in general, let's do an A/B of like the compressor sends. Let's turn them off. And
I can actually just play the parallel buses solo.
No. I think it's nice to just hear what's changing to the drums. That's it. Yeah. Like in context with your 808.
So this is without the this is without the parallel bus.
Okay. With the 808.
With the 808. Okay. Ready. Right now with the parallel bus.
It's just slide.
It's just there. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is, again, like we're looking at perceived loudness. Now, one way to do it is to actually like put the level up, but you're going to lose headroom if you do that. So when you do it parallelly, you're bringing up the energy without losing a lot of headroom. That's what's happening. It's definitely making it louder. It's definitely adding like a dB.
Yeah.
As opposed to adding 5 dB, you're adding 1 dB.
When you say like having headroom, that means basically you're trying to not make the signal louder, but trying to get that character so that it can come out of the master channel in a way and not give us enough headroom and not
not add too much level
basically.
It still sounds loud, but it doesn't add too much level.
Got it.
Like I said, if I just take the drum bus and just put it up 5 dB, I'm actually adding 5 dBs in my master.
Right.
But if I do it this way, I might add like say 2 dB.
Okay.
But it'll have the same effect.
So in general, the way that you mix is you have individual effects on each and every element, vocals, guitars, melodic stuff, melodic channels, and then you have return tracks which are applying effects, even compression, and then all these things going to the submix, or only the audio tracks are going to the submix?
Everything is going to the submix.
Everything's going to the submix. So all these tracks like effects which are in parallel, audio tracks, groups, everything going to the submix, which is like here, you can see. And all these plugins from like ProQ3, API, all these things that Nitin is using is adding the final character that you are looking for. That's interesting.
Yes. Yeah. The mastering character, if you want to call it that,
right.
Like a finished smooth product.
That's kick-ass, bro. Like, thanks for sharing this. Like, it's really helpful even for me because it gives me a bit of different ideas, because everyone has their own way of mixing, and this is really nice that you shared this with us today. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And please check out Nitin's work. Like, he's a kick-ass engineer, as you can see here, and he makes his own music as well under artist name called Palindroma. You can check out his music on Spotify, and he has a really cool idea of sound design, because he uses synths like me. He has a couple of Moog synths and he's also a synth addict, so like me. So check out his music. He's constantly putting out reels also on Instagram. So I think you're putting out new reels with new musical content. So it's really interesting. So do check it out. And thank you Nitin so much for joining us today. And guys, we'll bring more of this. So please hit that subscribe button. I'm not obsessed with it, but at least we could reach up till 1K. And I'll see you in the next podcast. Thank you so much for joining in. If you have been watching it till the end of this video, I hope this was helpful for you, because it certainly was helpful for me to understand ki kis tarah se basically advanced mixing hoti hai. Okay, so that's what I wanted to bring with Nitin. Thank you so much, bro. Do you have anything to add? Please let us know.
Thank you, Satyam, for having me on. I think it's always great to share workflows, because I'm a big fan of looking at other people's workflows. And I hope this helped the larger upcoming audio community.
Certainly.
And thank you. And So if anybody wants to like reach out, I mean, I'm always here to help out and give like mixed feedbacks, or like you can also check out my stuff on my Instagram. It's at Palindroma Music. I have new music coming up
Nice.
this year, and and I'm going to be working on more like short content inspired from Silk Road Studios and Satyam and his team. Thank you so much for having me here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you in the next one.